Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope you're enjoying the day so far. Lots of content to take in, so I appreciate you sticking with us throughout the day. Introducing our next session, I'm really excited to welcome Stephen from Chainlink, who's going to be talking us through the next generation of NFTs. So I'll invite Stephen on stage straight away so he can elaborate on that a little bit further, and I'll get out the way for Stephen to take the reins. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Miles. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with you today. We're here talking about something that's really, really exciting from my perspective, which is the next generation of NFTs, right? We've been talking a lot over the day about NFTs, and I really want to paint a picture today about where we've come from and a little bit about where I think that we are going with Oracle-powered and dynamic NFTs. So I want to start off with a little bit of a poll. And so I want to show this poll on stage here. Just want to kind of pull the audience here because I've got some introductory content. I want to see how fast I should go through some of that content. All right, we've got a lot of experts and a lot of people with some knowledge and a few complete beginners. Okay, very nice. Thank you so much. This is super helpful. So while more people are filling that out, I'll just do a brief story here. And so let me share my screen here. So back in 2016, I was fortunate enough to go to the Louvre, where they have the Mona Lisa sitting off to the side, and you can't get within 12 feet of it. There's giant ropes. And I kind of just took a moment after looking at the painting and stepped back, and I saw this giant crowd of people all clamoring to see this thing. And people come from all over the planet to see this. And I think that that's a really, really good metaphor for the NFT world right now, which is everyone is kind of really exciting. Everyone's watching. Everyone's really trying to get in and be a part of this. And so part of what I want to do for you today is hopefully pull back the cord a little bit and let you into a little bit of insight in terms of where NFTs are going in the future. So my name is Stephen Fluin. I am head of developer relations at Chainlink Labs. My role on the team is really twofold. The first is to help you be successful using Chainlink. And the second is to understand what it's like out there in the real world with people that are building applications, building businesses on the blockchain, and figure out how can we reflect your needs onto the team better so that we can make really great choices as we continue to build out our products and features and capabilities. So we're going to go through this in 3 parts. So first, we'll talk a little bit about the past, present, and future of NFTs. Then I'm actually going to dive into some live coding, and we'll actually build out a dynamic Oracle-powered NFT. And then we'll end up talking a little bit about the use cases that we have for some of these dynamic NFTs. So again, I'll go through this relatively quickly since most people have some knowledge. But if you look back in the history, we started with fungible tokens, right? In 2009, we had things like Bitcoin. We had the introduction, the growth of blockchain for the first time. And with a fungible token, if I have 1,000 of these and I send you 500 of these fungible tokens, and then let's imagine you send those back for some reason, I have 1,000 fungible tokens. I have 1,000, and I can't really tell which of those which of those 1,000 were yours, right? They're all equal. They're all identical. And so this is the main concept with fungible tokens. There's lots of them out there: Bitcoin, Ethereum, thousands and thousands more. But then around 2012, things advanced a little bit. And there was the concept of a non-fungible token was introduced. So if we take that exact same example, if I give you a piece of art and you give that back to me, I'm going to know that that was the piece of art I gave you, right? Like, these things are completely distinguishable. These things are special and unique. And that's really the power of NFTs in general. So NFTs, as we all know, represent something. So arts, collectibles, gaming, physical assets, digital assets. I think one of the best things about events like this is that there's people coming up with even more use cases that we haven't even thought of yet. And that's really, really exciting to be a part of. So there's lots of examples: cat pictures, punks, tickets, all these sorts of things. These make great examples of NFTs, but even beyond the art world, right? Mortgages, tweets, badges, trading cards, all these things are something that can add value to you and even evolve beyond the art use case that's very, very common. In around 2018, it actually became a standard. So we have EIP 721, where non-fungible tokens now have a standard. And the nice magical thing about creating the standard was that now NFTs, you can build interfaces on top of them that are standardized and reproducible. So this is what enables things like OpenSea, so that any NFT that follows the standard, they're going to be able to render. People are going to be able to access that marketplace and take advantage of really a lot of the power of NFTs. NFTs are hugely popular today, right? Like there's tons of them. Everyone's very, very excited. And there's billions of dollars in the NFT space. But for the most part, NFTs are static. They kind of just sit there. They don't do anything. They don't engage with you. And so the next step beyond that is we're obviously going to see more growth in NFTs. We're going to see more use cases, more maturation, things like that standard are going to continue to evolve. We're going to see new standards. And one of the biggest concepts is that NFTs are going to become more dynamic. So imagine an NFT that can react to the world rather than just existing there. Because one of the things that we see is that when smart contracts and blockchain applications, blockchain content data can be interacting with and engaging with the real world and empowering the real world and consuming information from the real world, that's a magic key, right? That unlocks the same sort of technology that we had on the traditional web, where you can access backends, you can access data, and you can bring that all in, and we can access all of that in an NFT to make better NFTs than we ever could before. So to make this very, very clear, I'm just actually going to go ahead and build one. So we've got a couple goals for a brief demo here today. So first, we're going to start working with an NFT smart contract. And then I'm going to go ahead and make it dynamic by connecting it to Chainlink Keepers. So Chainlink Keepers, if you haven't heard, is basically a off-chain computation and automation kind of platform. So you can connect a smart contract to Keepers, and then Keepers are going to go ahead and keep your contract up to date. It's going to send data in. It's going to interact with it without a user having to initiate anything, which is kind of the magical piece. And it's doing it in a decentralized way. So let's dive over into live coding. So I know there's a lot of non-developers in the audience, so I want to make sure that everyone can follow this as easily as possible. I'll be pasting a link to a GitHub repository later if you want any of the code. But effectively, I'm going to start from scratch. And so I'm going to create a brand new NFT live here. I'm going to call it my NFT. And I'm going to copy and paste just a tiny, tiny bit of code, and then the rest we'll be creating from scratch. So the code I'm pasting in here is basically just a simple NFT. So you've got a trading card. So this is a trading card that we're going to be building, and we're going to call it the Stephen Fluin trading card with the SFTC. You're going to have a couple functions here. So you're going to be able to mint a new NFT. And then you're going to also have a URI where we're actually storing the assets that are going to show up for that NFT. So let's actually go ahead and give this a try real quick. So I'm going to jump directly onto Rinkeby, and I'm going to just deploy this NFT. And so this may take a second for the blockchain to confirm it, but effectively, as soon as that is deployed, timeout. So I think we're having a little bit of problem with Rinkeby right now. So let's just go ahead and deploy it locally. And Remix is failing. All right, let's go ahead and blow that away because we're starting from scratch. This should be pretty straightforward. All right, let's see if Remix is capable of deploying it now. Perfect. All right, this is much better. So as you can see, we've created an NFT. If you've never seen this before, this is Remix is an IDE for building smart contracts. And here is my mint item method, which I could pass in, for example, an address and a URL. And then, so let's go ahead and put this hopefully on Rinkeby this time. And we'll actually pay for that transaction to put it directly onto the blockchain. And then as soon as that is deployed, I'm going to be able to mint an NFT for us all. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and mint an NFT. I'm going to give it to myself and pass in a URL. So we're passing in an address and a URL. I'm going to pay for that transaction. And then effectively what we could do is we could go directly onto OpenSea and we could list this NFT. Oftentimes it takes OpenSea a little bit of time to see the contract. So I'm just going to go ahead and not wait for that to be pending, and I'll just explain the NFT that I've created here. So effectively what I'm doing is I'm creating a trading card for Stephen Fluin. And so if you look at this NFT, it's going to start with my rookie card, right? This is a super embarrassing old photo of me back in high school. Like I was very geeky, super embarrassing. But then as that NFT is going to level up, it's going to get better and better. So there I learned to wear a suit poorly. And then I started traveling the globe, giving presentations and kind of so on, had a couple kids, and then we get to kind of where I am today in my life. And so this is the concept that we're going to be building here today. So we've got an NFT that is going to level up instead of just being a static piece of content. So let's go ahead and now that we've got to this NFT, it's working. Theoretically, if we hit submit here, we should see that trading card show up as soon as OpenSea sees it. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to make it dynamic. So I'm just going to switch over to the Coven network for a second here. And then effectively what we're going to do is I'm going to build in a counter into this application. So we're going to take a mapping. So this is basically just going to store for any NFT we have in the application. We're going to keep a counter for it. So we'll just keep a list of counters. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the URL. So instead of just returning the URL that was hard-coded when the NFT was created, we're going to go ahead and return a string. So we're going to encode packed. And we're going to take that token URI. We're going to take the token ID. And we will pass in strings.toString. And we'll just hard code 1 for now, just to keep this relatively simple. And that should be it. So effectively now, every NFT is going to take its counter and concatenate that or add that to the URL base that you're giving it. So now that our NFT is capable of being dynamic. But that doesn't actually make it dynamic. So let's go ahead and do one step further. And we're going to use something called Chainlink Keepers. So as I said, this is a way that a Oracle network is going to actually take your NFT and maintain it and update it over time. And so first we're going to import at contract or at chainlink/contracts source v08 interfaces keeper compatible interface. We should be able to say keeper compatible interface here. And so a keeper compatible interface is just the interface that your contract needs in order to be maintained by the keeper network. And so one of the things it can do is we are going to decide ourselves how often we want to keep do maintenance on this NFT. And so I'm just going to create an interval, and I'll say just 30 seconds. And then we're going to go ahead and save a timestamp so that we don't update it too often. We don't even need to initialize that. So with that, we now have an interval, we have a timestamp, and now there are two essential methods that are important for building a dynamic NFT with Chainlink Keepers. So the first is going to be called check upkeep. So check upkeep is basically asking your NFT, do you need to be updated? And so the nice thing is that all of this work that happens in check upkeep happens off chain. So it doesn't cost any gas. We'll call that, and then we're going to make this an external method that's a view, and it's overriding the interface. And then we're going to say that it returns a bool called upkeep needed and a bytes memory perform data. All right, so this is going to be a very, very simple method just to say, do we need to update our NFT? And so we'll say, I'll just for a second, just hard code a token ID. You could get that from the check data if you wanted. And then what we're going to say is upkeep needed is equal to the timestamp of the block on the blockchain minus the last timestamp. And then if that's greater than our interval, we don't want our counter with our token ID to be more than 4 because we only have 4 states in our NFT. Then we need upkeep. So in our perform data, we can just set that equal to check data. So this is the magic part that via the Chainlink Keeper network, when you register this, it's going to execute entirely off chain, which is kind of cool. And then the other part we need is if upkeep is actually needed for our NFT, then I'm going to create a perform upkeep method. And what this perform upkeep method is going to take the data that you passed in, that you created off chain, and then you can do any sort of validation you want on that data. Perform data. And this is going to be an external function, and it's going to be an override as well. And we don't actually need any sort of return on this one. So again, I'm just going to take the token ID, just hard code it to 1 actually. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the counter for the token that we selected, and we're going to increase it by 1. And we're going to update the last timestamp. All right, so quick check for terrible typos or anything like that. We've got our NFT. We now have a method to check and see if it needs upkeep. And then we've got a function that actually makes it dynamic by changing the token ID. So let's go ahead and try this real quick. So if we go here, we now should be able to go back to our VM, and we're going to actually try this out. So we'll create a trading card contract. Great, that looks like that worked. Yes, Tom B, I am creating an NFT in front of everyone here. So compile. No contract compiled yet. Oh, here we go. Missing a semicolon. Missing a comma here. There we go. All right, and let's just take one last look at the last error here. And I'll just copy and paste just to make sure I get this path right. There we go, interface versus interfaces. Keeper compatible interface. It helps if you spell keeper compatible correctly. There we go. And the last change we need to make is we fat finger the token ID here. That should be the last typo here, hopefully. Counters, counters, counters. And this should say counters. All right, we've got all the errors gone, so let's go ahead and deploy this one more time and just make sure that it worked. Great. So effectively now, I have a NFT that is keeper compatible. So I can go ahead and I could deploy this to a network. I could jump into Chainlink Keepers, register that upkeep, and share it with the world. So I'm going to jump back to the slides now. So what we just accomplished, we started working at, had an NFT smart contract, and we made it dynamic by adding just these two simple methods that basically allow us to have an Oracle network or some real world data inform and interact with the contract. So we did it. Hooray. So limitless use cases. There's so many different ways that you can make your contracts and your NFTs dynamic. Timers, market conditions, human achievements, digital agreements, and so many more. So you can drive updates by randomness. You can automate them. You can make them based on data feeds and prices. You can create custom data, access any API on the internet, or you can even do things cross-chain with something like CCIP, which is coming soon. A couple of really cool examples before I close. You can build a weather NFT. Someone's actually already done this. So this is an NFT that changes based on the weather in a specific location. And then another example is in the sports world, LaMelo Ball actually issued an NFT that evolves and changes based on his stats, based on his achievements and accomplishments. So just to leave everyone on the same page, dynamic Oracle-powered NFTs really level up what's possible with NFTs, and they really do represent the next step in the next evolution of NFTs for us all. Thank you so much.
On and off, on and off. Sorry, I'm back. Stephen, wonderful. I think a lot of appreciation for you actually walking through how it's done. A lot of the time, you know, we hear the phrase, the term NFT. We might even own one, but like understanding how to go about creating one, minting and doing it, you know, use it through the Chainlink network is really exciting. We've got loads of questions here, so I appreciate we're over time, but I might bring one or two questions to you. So the first comes from Murat, who's asking, when is it estimated that governments will switch land parcels to blockchain? It's kind of an out there question.
No, I love that question, and I wish I knew the answer, because I've personally gone through the process of like buying a house or buying land, and the amount of paperwork that you have to file and like send and sign, it's ridiculous, because it doesn't even make sense, because you have to do the exact same thing every time you buy a house. Like you don't actually need the paperwork at all. Like you get this big stack of 300 pages of paper when you buy a house, and you don't need that 300 pages to sell it. Like they just know. And so like, if you could just represent that with an NFT and skip all this extra work, extra labor, and then actually like imagine that NFT is interacting with real world property data, so that like maybe your NFT for your house actually indicates like what your estimated value is. Like imagine like a Zillow integration or a Redfin integration.
Yeah, and you know, as maybe you put an extension on your house and it evolves the NFT over time. You know, crazy.
Absolutely.
Could be really interesting. Awesome. Thank you very much for that, Murat. We have another one from Julia. How do we minimize the effect of NFTs on the environment? You touched a little bit on like the doing it off chain and you know and all of that thing. But when we are minting, how is it a case of just moving to different chains and more efficient chains and continuing to push that needle? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll speak just personally. I'm a big fan of the possible shift to proof of stake, right? Like if Ethereum does shift to proof of stake, that means that we're not ending up buying millions or billions of dollars of mining machines, and just heating up the planet. So like that, I personally care about that. But the other piece is this off-chain computation piece. So Keepers is a great example of like, you can write a smart contract, you can write code in the way that developers are used to writing an NFT. But by having this one method check upkeep, you can actually, like the Keeper network does that in a limited fashion via the Oracle. And so none of that happens on chain. And so instead of you can have big complicated computations, so maybe going through a list of wallets that have to be double checked or a list of statuses across the world that have to be double checked. So instead of doing that on chain, if you did it off chain in a Oracle network that's going to deliver you a truthful result, that can be far more efficient, and hopefully we're not expending the limited resources of this planet as much.
Yeah. We all hope for that, right? Without the physical planet, there is physical Earth. There is no metaverse, you know. Like, so we have to kind of consider these things. And there is a question from Tom, who you responded to live on the stage. He was asking, can a beginner create an NFT? Can they do what you done?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Solidity, we see millions and millions of people are going to be getting into smart contracts over the next few years. And one of the really exciting things about like EVM, Solidity, Ethereum, is that a lot of the people that are doing this are doing it for the first time. Like these are not all developers coming over from traditional web. These are a lot of people that are like, hey, I want to have more control in my life. I like blockchain. I believe in blockchain. And then they're developing the skill set. So I think anyone can do this if you put in a little bit of time. But then there's also a lot of very fantastic tools out there, like OpenSea itself. They have tools that you can create an NFT without having to write the smart contract, right? Like people are building better smart contracts that allow you to do whatever you want, and great front ends on top of that too.
Amazing, yeah, no, for sure. Well, just for anyone listening in, if you are interested in repeating this session as many times as you want to try and nail some of the mechanics of the kind of development side, you can. It's all available on demand. So we will have to close the session now. Thank you for all of the questions. There's tons more there. But a big virtual round of applause for Stephen for walking us through that. A lot of great reception there. You can see the emoticons coming up at the bottom of your screen now. From me, a big thank you. And for anyone else watching, there is a session now on the Metaverse economy. So Nancy Beaton from Together Labs talking about the work that they've been doing, embedding sort of a blockchain-oriented economic infrastructure into IMVU, the virtual networking platform. So head over there, or dive straight into the break now, where you can go and speed network. So Stephen, maybe we'll see you in the speed networking. Again, thank you.
Cheers, everybody.
Bye bye for now.